So I thought I'd do a video today about working from home, which I think in the coronavirus world actually might be more relevant than ever. So why I think I could comment on this. I've worked for Live Company Group, both as a employee and self-employed as one of my clients for a number of years now. And actually that business, whilst it has a premises and we have the warehouse where the models and stuff are built, actually the exec team almost exclusively works remotely. And I suppose I was cynical when I joined. I'd not worked in many businesses where you weren't office based, and I've worked in business where you had multiple offices, but actually what you got was a lot of face time. And I thought I'd give my kind of top 5 tips for home working.
Hey, that's my house. Wait a minute, that's my house. Hold up. Oh shoot, this the news? Oh shoot.
I'm live. I'm live.
Oh, you live?
Yeah.
Oh, hi mama. Hey mama, I love you.
Because I think it's actually really challenging physically and mentally, the kind of lack of human interaction and actually the lack of stimulus at time. So I thought I'd give you my top tips as I'm a few years into remote working now. So point number 5, although it's at the end of the video, is potentially the most important. I know you'll think I'm saying it just because I want people to stick with the video, but I genuinely do, because point 5, although it's last because in terms of your overall organisation or your company, it's a critical point, so stick with it. Tip number 1, don't you or your loved ones, if you live with any, confuse home working for a day off. It's a criminal error that so many people make, and particularly at the beginning you go, oh amazing, I get to work from home, and you start your day later, you finish your day earlier. Those of us, certainly for me, that don't take a lunch break, or you might think that you do this time, and it might be that your partner asks you if you could just watch the kids while this is happening, or if you could pop to the shops because you're at home. It's the first mistake people make, and actually it's quite hard to get back from. And I really only made it once or twice at the beginning, and I became really clear, because I was senior executive, that you cannot manage your day if you try and shorten it. You need to work like you would have worked if you were in an office environment with the same access and the same contact as you would have with your day-to-day staff. So yeah, don't confuse working from home with days off or half days. Tip number 2, structure. Structure, structure, structure. It doesn't have to represent the same structure as your day-to-day life did, because if you commute, you don't need to get up as early. But I think as best you can, start the day at the same time you would have previously, and end the day at the same time as you would have previously. Allow yourself little breaks, of course, kind of mid-morning, go make a tea, make yourself a sandwich or whatever at lunchtime. But treat it as though you did when you were at work. Whatever your working habits are, try and bring them into the home life, because I think they're super, super important. And what I say by structure, I don't just mean around work. So for me, I would, as you can tell by these huge muscles, I go to the gym 4 or 5 times a week. I make sure that is included in my structure. So as I talked in one of the life hack videos about having that hour in the day, and I used to spend a lot of time in hotels and stuff, so creating your own time was slightly easier in that regard. But I've tried to bring that practice into home working. So I get up, I have my morning with the kids as best I can. We do some breakfast, we play some games, and then I start work in earnest, and my wife takes over, as we would if they were going to school and if I was going to work. And I then decamp into my office, and as best you can, try and schedule calls in. If you are part of a senior team, have your daily meetings or your bi-weekly meetings, whatever's scheduled in that you would normally do in an office environment. Don't let being at home frighten you. There is Skype, there is Zoom, there's Hangouts, there's all sorts of things. Keep that structure, particularly if you're a leader, because your people will need you. So as a leader, you will have other leaders reporting into you. You need to give them the pillars of their week so that they've got the pillars to hand down their staff and productivity remains. So create that structure. Make sure you have very clear pillars of your day and what needs to be achieved. Tip number 3 I'd give to anyone, whether it was home working or in an office, but critically important at home working, is have your do list for the day. For the day, whether that's a whiteboard somewhere, if you text yourself, you put diary invites. So many of us have our own little hints and tips and ways in which we manage ourselves. But ensure that when you're working from home, you don't let your productivity go down. Because actually, with the humour with the distance in human interaction, or the lack of, actually your productivity can go up. You can get more done because the conversations that break your day up in an office that aren't there actually give you time to get full yield out of your day. So create a to-do list each evening for the following day, and as best you can, do not finish your day without completing that list, even if it means working longer hours, because that's what you would have done in an office. And if you need to roll that project onto the next day, do not let it carry on to the day after. So really, really simple, but really, really important. Have a to-do list. Get yourself some structure where you've got to work through those projects, because if you're not naturally a self-starter, or you've worked in an environment where you're prompted by a boss or somebody else, that becomes hugely important. That becomes your management. That is your day-to-day structure of what you're going to achieve in that day. So that's number 3. Number 4 is have a laugh still, because actually working from home can be really, really difficult. You can feel isolated, you can feel detached from the rest of the business.
Why don't you just buy the whole song?
I don't have to buy it. I just want to taste it.
And in companies where some are remote and some are in offices, you can feel like you're disconnected from the mainframe, and actually there's twofold to that. That can make you feel quite lonely, but if you happen to be part of the senior team and you're disconnected from the wheelhouse, as it were, you owe it to the business and to the staff that you need to have touch points with them daily, weekly, whatever it might be. They need to feel as though you're present in the business, that you understand what is happening in the business. So don't let yourself be alone.
Goodbye, my lover. Goodbye, my friend.
Have a laugh. And what I mean by have a laugh is, most offices, whether you love your job or you hate it, there's people you get on with. And whether it's when you're making your tea, you're having your lunch, you have that moment of interaction where you're having a laugh with somebody and your day is broken up. So my simplest tip is schedule 1 or 2 calls a day with someone that you work with or someone that you don't, that you know for 10 or 15 minutes is going to break your day up, and actually you're going to have a bit of a laugh and life won't feel so serious. And kid yourself, when you work in an office you do that anyway. As I say, there's always those points where everyone's breaking away and they've got to kind of take the headset off or whatever they're doing and just decompress for a few minutes. Everybody does it in an office, because if you don't, you go insane. And actually that's the flip side to an earlier point that I made in point 1, where don't pretend it's a day off. Other people, when they work from home, can feel guilt that actually no one knows what I'm doing, therefore they might think that I'm tossing it off. So don't be scared to put some fun into your day. Make sure you have a laugh, make sure you still interact with people. Don't be a stranger. Get on the phone to the people you like, the people you love, and have a laugh, and then straight back to that point number 3, what have I got to get through today? Before you know it, work starts to feel like it did when you were in an office. Number 5, don't let remote working be an excuse for poor communication. Communication is critical to the success of any business.
And we're off to Fratton Park, where there's been a red card, but for who, Chris Kamara?
I don't know, Jeff, has it? I must have missed that.
But actually, it's one of the easiest things to let go by the wayside as soon as you become a home worker, no longer an office worker, because what you find in an office environment, there's conversation all day long. You're on an email, you might be on a phone call, but in between that you're interacting with your colleagues, your staff, your friends, and when you're detached from that, you miss those subtle interactions that actually are a really effective form of communication, so that people are up to speed with what's happening in the business, what happened in this meeting, what happened on that last phone call, because actually it's very easy to quickly self-isolate, and actually, as I mentioned in a previous video, mushroom syndrome comes, kept in the dark and fed on shit. Everyone knows what they know.
The new music she's done.
No one else does. So do not let remote working become an excuse for you, your colleagues and your business to start communicating poorly, because communication is critical to every single business.